Hello there folks, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. There has been a slight change in my rocket design because I decided to do a test flight, and apparently not having any real SAS or no flight surfaces on your big ass rocket is a pretty bad idea. So decided to put some control surfaces on the rockets that are going to stay with us in the lower atmosphere, and I slapped on an SAS there. One other thing that I did was, as a result of adding a little extra weight, I threw in a little bigger fuel tank, and there is some landing gear on the probe in case we have enough delta V that we can land on Minmus. Not necessarily saying we are going to land on Minmus, but if we do have the delta V, we're going to try, because there's no reason just to keep it in orbit, because once the experiments are done, they're done. So we can't reset them unless we have a scientist come and reset them. So we're going to try to land on Minmus just to see if we can. Definitely not going to return, though. Not going to have enough delta V for that. So, with no further ado, let us launch. Also, because this is a slightly larger rocket, I suppose we can throttle down, we're going pretty quick. Because this is a slightly larger rocket, I'm not going to do a very aggressive gravity burn, although we will be doing a gravity burn, as not doing one would be incredibly stupid. Also, I'm going to turn off the gimbal on this engine, because this is a very, very long and phallic looking rocket, and it starts to wobble really terribly once we get out of the thicker atmosphere. So speaking of thicker atmosphere, we're getting Mach effects, so I'm going to reduce our throttle to save on our efficiency. And we're doing alright. And we're going, ooh, awful quick. Not even at 10,000 meters yet. And we are breaking the 450 meter per second mark. Once we ditch these side engines, we're going to throttle all the way up, though, so that's not going to be an issue. Okay, we can probably really start turning now. Once we get into about 20,000 meters is where we can really start burning quite hard. Excuse me. And the SAS should definitely keep us under control. Oh, it's really wanting to tip, though, so I'm really having to fight it to keep it on the prograde marker. But once we get above 30,000 meters, we should be alright. I know that's a lot of aerodynamic drag on the top, but we should be okay. Yeah, it looks like we're going to be fine to start pointing this guy sideways. Also, I'm going to start tipping a little bit. Ooh. And by turning off the gimbling on this, it prevents our rocket from wobbling. If I turn this on, you'll see how bad of an idea it is to see. It's already starting the death wobble, so I'm going to keep that locked. Okay, we are definitely going way too high, so you're going to wait till apoaps. Yeah, that was a very terrible gravity burn, but we'll get into a nice high orbit. So I'm just going to see how much delta V are we going to need to actually make it into some resemblance of an orbit. Well, we want our periaps to be somewhere. There we go. Let's move it a little bit sideways so our periaps is going to be decent. There we go. That'll be fine. Alright. And we're going to be using these maneuver nodes to get us to Minmus. In fact, we want the periaps to be somewhere around here in our orbit if we can, because that will help with the Oberth effect. Because we're going to want to burn somewhere around here to make it to Minmus. Because you can get to Minmus the same way you can with the Mun, by actually looking at it when it rises over Kerbal. However, it's so small it's really hard to see. So somewhere around here is where we want our periaps. I wonder if I can make that happen by adjusting when we burn. Ooh. Yeah, by doing that right there, we can get the periaps exactly where we want it. So we're going to actually do that. Alright, well, let's slowly turn over. We have 3 minutes before we reach our maneuver node. It looks like we're going to have way too much fuel, but that's alright. We're going to probably use this same design to actually get to Minmus with a proper lander, so it's just going to be a test design of the rocket, so if we have extra fuel, that's more than okay. Just wanted to see if this style lander can do the job. should slightly ease over to the side. We're right about on our maneuver node marker and just about there. If we didn't have the SAS on board, it would be darn near impossible to control this massive rocket. There is a little bit of control in the probe, but not much. Also, I'm going to deploy that, and we need to get our solar panels out so we don't waste all of our electricity. We do have batteries on this, but we don't want to waste any electricity if we can help it. Alright, so it's going to be a 37-second burn. Probably have 37 seconds worth of fuel left in this stage, so we're definitely getting into an orbit with this stage. This will be the Minmus injection stage right here, and then we'll have the Oscar B fuel tanks with the Ant engine to maneuver around Minmus with, and possibly even land. Alright, well, that'll be good for that, so let's speed up time a little bit. Once we get to about 40 seconds, we're going to start burning, maybe 30, well, not quite 38. Let's wait until we get to about 25 seconds-ish, and then we'll start our full throttle burn so we can get our periaps exactly where we want it. Alright, good enough right there. And we're going to wait until periaps goes somewhere around this side, and then that will give us the best slingshot to go to Minmus, which is going to be somewhere around there. And we're also going to have to change our inclination. If you don't know what an inclination is, that's just your angle at which the orbit is around the planet. Like right now we're on an equatorial inclination, and that's pretty perfect right there. We're at an almost equatorial inclination, whereas this one has, I believe it's what you would call an ascending node because it goes up in relation to us, but if it was going down, it would be a descending node. I believe that's how it works. I am not an astrophysicist person, so I don't know. Actually, astrophysicists probably don't deal much with that. That would be orbital scientists that would deal with that sort of thing. Alright, well, now, let's go to the add maneuver, and Minmus is this guy way out here, so let's add a prograde marker. Ooh, it looks like we're gonna get, oh, is the Mun gonna get in the way? The Mun's gonna get in the way. Don't do this, Mun. Why you have to do this, Mun? Looks like we're gonna have to wait for one more orbit because the Mun is deciding to be a dick about things and getting in our way. And that's gonna be kind of an issue because then our periaps isn't gonna be actually where we need it. You Mun. Mucking things up. Alright, well, I guess we're not going to be as efficient as possible because we're not going to be able to burn exactly at our periaps to get to Minmus because the Mun is deciding to play with our orbit. I wonder if we can actually use the Mun to our advantage. Maybe slingshot and actually get us there quicker. Okay, so that way we're just going to pretty much crash into the Mun. And, oop, what if I move this? Ooh, actually, we're still going to get an encounter if we do this. Hey, there we go. And the encounter is going to be... it's going to be pretty far out there. Minmus periaps of 400,000. That's less than 1 million, which is what it was before. How is that? Periaps of 322,000 meters. So that's about as probably as close as we're going to get with a single burn. And uh-oh. Let's get that back down to the 320-something thousand. Ooh, is that better? 259,000 meters for periaps on Minmus. I think we're going to deal with that. And our maneuver node is in 12 minutes. So it looks like the Mun is actually going to be decent for us. It's not going to mess things up too much. We still have a little bit of fuel in this orbital stage right here. And I might actually want to adjust my normal and anti-normal nodes so that we are on a good course to... Whoa, whoa, what are you doing? The maneuver node's moving on me. Stop it. There we go. There, stay right there. Perfect. All right, well, I am going to... We have 11 minutes, so let's take a look at Minmus. I'm going to see if I can set Minmus as a target. Or, well, we'll focus view Minmus first so we can see where we are. So we're actually going to come in... we're going to come in fairly far below it, which means we'll get on a kind of awkward polar orbit almost. Which means we could... Well, we're going to be doing science in orbit around Minmus, but maybe, if possibly, if we're on this kind of orbit, we might be able to land in this little lake bed area, which would be kind of cool. That is, if we... Well, we're definitely going to have enough Delta V. There's no way that we're not, because we still have this massive stage with the Terrier engine, which is probably actually enough to get us to Duna. If we decided to go to Duna, we could just use this exact same setup and get a probe to Duna if we wanted. Probably won't be able to land it. Actually, probably could land it, because all we'd need to do is strap a heat shield on it and some parachutes. Yeah, we'll give it a shot sometime. But right now, our focus is Minmus. So let's speed up time a little bit. 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 4. All right, well... I was thinking maybe of adding some mods into this game. I don't know what you guys think about adding mods into this game. I know I like playing games pretty vanilla, but there are some very useful mods for the... what do you want to call them? The maneuvers. There's a precise maneuver node mod that is very, very useful. I was thinking about using because you can just add little tiny bits of Delta V to each particular node, and you can see how close you're going to get and how much Delta V it's going to use. Also, there's a mod that shows you how much Delta V is in each stage, and that mod would be incredibly useful because pair those two together and you can actually determine before you actually launch where you can go with the rocket. Right now we're kind of just flying by the seat of our pants, and it's kind of working, but we could do it more scientifically by using those types of mods, and I think that would be kind of cool. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I always take what you guys think into consideration when deciding what to do. So, and, oh, crap, we totally missed our burn. That's what I get for not paying attention. All right, well, I'm going to have to do an adjustment burn almost certainly. Hopefully we can get into some sort of an intercept. Well, not if we don't have any fuel. Alright. And the moon is getting in the way. Screw you, moon. Oh, we passed it up. So, alright, well, we're going to wait a little bit. And then we're going to do an adjustment burn so we can get back into the Minmus intercept. That's what I get for not paying attention. So add maneuver here. We're going to burn a little bit retrograde, and we should get back into... Ooh, almost got it. Prograde. Nope. Okay, looks like we're getting into an intercept again with a periaps of quite a lot. Add a little bit, add a little bit. Okay, so that's too little. Okay. Let's keep on burning retrograde. Ooh, so we can actually get quite close. Burn retrograde. Oop. 800,000 meters. Even, oop. It looks like we're going to smack into it or just miss it completely. So, there we go. We'll have a different orbit around it. We're on the other side of Minmus this time. And we're pretty far away, but maybe we can adjust that. Actually, we'll be in a decent orbit. Actually, spy satellites tend to use this inclined orbit so that when the planet rotates underneath it and the spy satellite orbits, it can actually get a view of everything eventually. It generally takes a couple of days, usually about a month's time, but that's about how long it takes before it can get a full view of the Earth by using an inclined orbit like that. So we might be able to do that, and unfortunately we don't have surface scanners yet, but if we did, that would be the perfect type of orbit for it, and we don't, but future reference. However, we could... Nope, that's the wrong way. We could burn this way and get into a more equatorial orbit. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Well, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better. That's better. And we can probably just use a smidgen more. Meh, that's fine. Alright, well, let's get back into position so that we can burn. It's going to take a whole total of 1 second, so I better not miss this one. And a whole total of... how long? Probably... okay, so around 10.3 meters per second. So I'm going to actually burn early, but use very teeny tiny amounts of thrust, because the 1 second burn time is estimated if we're at full thrust. And we're not going to be at full thrust. We're going to be at pretty much as low thrust as we can possibly be, so that we don't overshoot it, because that is a very teeny tiny amount of change in our velocity. So, all right, well, enough talk. Let's actually get to the maneuver node and not miss it this time. Goodbye, Kerbal. We're never seeing you again, at least not with this probe. And we're probably not going to get a massive amount of science from this particular mission, because we're going to be transmitting data rather than bringing it back to Kerbal, but we'll still get enough that it'll be worthwhile. And the reason that we're actually doing this is so that we know what to do when we bring a Kerbal along, so we don't, you know, muck it up and die in the process. Oh, almost missed it. Time warp is such a fickle thing. There's also another mod that lets you time warp to nodes. Oh, I should probably definitely get that one. Alright, 2 minutes, and we'll just enjoy the view here. And once we actually do this particular burn, I am going to show you what is exactly on our proby nodey thing. Alright, well, I'm going to go here and bring this back up. T-minus is probably going to take about 4 seconds maybe, so T-minus 2, and I'm going to just add a teeny tiny amount of thrust, and then we're going to kill the throttle. 4, 3, T-minus, there we go. Ooh, that's actually not bad. Not exactly what we wanted. Ooh, that's better. Is it? Well, we're going to have some sort of encounter, so that's something, I guess. Actually, no, we're not, because the Mun is going to get in the way again. Why you do this, Moon? Oh, no, wait. We just missed it entirely. We're not getting it at all. Well, this is a very, very hard one to try to do. Alright, well, I'm going to come back when we actually have a proper encounter with Minmus, so meet you back in a bit. Alright, well, that took about 2 nudges of the throttle, and we are there at a very, very small periapse of 300,000 meters, so that was actually just about as close as we wanted it. In fact, I could probably nudge the throttle a teeny bit more, but I'm not feeling confident about it. Nudge it. Okay, well, yeah, we got it even lower. So we got it to about exactly where we want it. And then when we're right at the periapse, we're going to burn retrograde like normal to get into an orbit. And I think this is a pretty equatorial type orbit. Well, could be a little better, but kind of hard to see. As you can see, we're actually going to slingshot around it if we don't do anything. And then we're going to get to a pretty low periapse around Kerbal. But that's not going to happen because we are going to go into an orbit of Minmus. So let's not overshoot this, and let's get this thing done. For some reason, I actually couldn't put maneuver nodes on this orbit for some very bizarre reason before, and I was really, really frustrated, so I had to do it by hand and kind of eyeball it, and we still managed to get the periapse, which is kind of amazing because I suck at that sort of thing normally. Anyhow, enough about how terrible I am at eyeballing things. Let's get this done. And as you see, Minmus is actually catching up on us because we are going, well, we're slowing down and we're only going 140 something meters per second, whereas Minmus is going a nice brisk 274.1 meters per second, so it's going to catch up on us. So we're going to actually be at our apoapse, and Kerbal and Minmus are going to be beneath us, but we're really concerned about Minmus at this point. At least that's what it looks like. Speed up time a little bit, don't go too fast. I wish there was a actual slider for this. That would be pretty cool for time warp. Or, you know, I could just use the time warp mod, which is pretty fantastic. Alright, we are just about there. Minmus encounter in T-minus, almost there. And that means we're going to want to put a retrograde burn thereabouts, which is probably going to be over here, because we're going to get sucked towards the moon in about now time. Yay, there we go. And that's actually a pretty good equatorial type orbit, and by doing that just by eyeballing it, I'm impressed with myself, because usually I suck at that, as I said before. Alright, and there we go. And if we do that, we'll get a pretty circular orbit by the looks of it. Well, not quite. A couple thousand meters off, but good enough for Kerbal work. Alright. Let's maneuver this guy to his maneuver node. And now that we lost our big SAS unit, it's going to be a little bit harder to control, but not too much, considering we did lose a lot of weight as well. Nope. Just about there. And good enough. So we have 76.2 meters per second to kill. And we also have about 2 hours of time worth to kill, so let's time warp there. I could probably just do this by, you know, eyeballing it. Actually, what if I, well, if I move where we do it, can't, well, that's actually worse of a spot. 276, 206. Yeah, that's probably as good as we're ever going to get. And almost there. Stay on target. Stay on target. We are still booking it. And as you notice, we're actually going fairly slow. If we were to orbit the moon or Kerbal, we'd have to go much, much faster. But that's because the gravity well on both of those celestial bodies are much, well, the gravity's a lot more. Whereas Minmus, not so much. You could pretty much sneeze and get an orbit in Minmus. Well, maybe not quite, but... Okay, so we have about 1 minute worth of time before we get there. 16-second burn, so... Let's slow down just a wee bit. And around 7 seconds, we're going to push throttle and make ourselves an orbit. Actually, should be doing this at the periapse, but we're so darn close it doesn't make a difference. Well, doesn't make a big difference, I suppose. It could make a difference. And we are now going to be in an almost in an orbit. Wrapping around, wrapping around, wrapping around, and there we go. That's just about perfect. Well, not quite. Good enough. Alright. So right now we are going to be in high space above Minmus, I believe. Which means it's sciencing time. Alright, where are you, Minmus? You are hiding. There you are. Alright, so let's take a look at our actual rover itself. Rover. It's not a rover. It's a probe. We have one science majiggy. We have a gravioli detector, another gravioli detector, a thermometer, just like the other thermometer over there. And we have a goo container there and a goo container there. So that's about all the science that we have. So we are going to definitely log the pressure data and read 0 as if it were in a vacuum. Whoa. So we're going to get 30 science from this. We did put the better ComSat on there, so we get 50% of the science back, which is better than the other ComSat, or whatever it's called, the antenna. So let's log the temperature. Got no science from this, so we're not going to do that. We're going to do it low over Minmus. And then we have our goo container. Observe the mystery goo. Do we have any good science from this? No. Can I reset the experiment? Because, I mean, I'm not going to get any science from transmitting the data. Okay, so that's good. So I guess we're going to go into low space above Minmus. Are we at our apoaps? No, we're not. I think we're going to wait until we're at our periaps and then lower the apoaps because it's on the bright side. Ideally, we would be at our apoaps and burning retrograde to lower our periaps when we're on the light side, but that's not the way it worked out this time. I would like to land in an area like that, if possible, but first we need to just get into low space above Kerbal. Oh, they do have a little warp here type thing, so I guess we're definitely going to have to use that. All right. We are going to burn retrograde to bring this down really, really low. And as you see, it takes almost no delta V at all to do that. I believe we can probably get to surfing distance, which I would consider to be around 9,000, less than 10,000 meters, because that'll definitely get us within the low space above Minmus. Don't want to do anything lower than that because there are some pretty big mountains here. Because there is technically a sea level, which is, I believe, this flat plain area, and these mountains are quite high above that flat plain area, so almost. Anything lower, and I think we might crash into this surface. Yeah, 8,000 meters, that'll do. That'll do just fine. All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to warp here. Whee! So, hopefully, warp here function is good. Yay! I guess we're going to be using that function a lot more than my fingers because my fingers don't tend to work sometimes. Alright, and let's get on to our node over here. And we have 33 meters per second of delta V to burn, which is still not much at all. We probably have several thousand meters of delta V per second in this stage. So this rocket was a bit overkill. But you know what? That's good because we can use the same rocket to land Kerbals here. Alright, well, let's see. We have around 7 minutes worth of time. Let's use the time warp. 4, 3, 2, 1. And this maneuver doesn't have to be precise. We just need to be by or near the periaps and burn a retrograde. That's about it. So around 2 seconds we're gonna burn. 2 seconds has elapsed, so there we go. What's our periaps? Just about exactly what we wanted it. I don't think it could be closer if we tried. So it was less than 1 meter off because you could see it was flickering in between the 2 correct meters that we needed. So you know what we're going to do? First off, we're going to enjoy the view as we watch our altimeter drop very, very, very low. And then we're going to do one more orbit, and on the second orbit we are going to begin our descent. And because we have this massive rocket with so much fuel, there's no possible way that we're not getting back to... or there's no possible way we're not getting to the surface. I still might end up crashing it because I'm a terrible pilot, but... ooh, we're gonna get so close. The science that we're gonna get is going to be fantastic. Oh, look at those big mountains. You know, just in case we hit the mountains, or might hit the mountains, we might want to elevate the periaps a bit. And to do that, because we're so close to the periaps, burning prograde really won't help us at this point. So we'll actually have to do the weird thing of actually burning straight up. Alright, well, hopefully it doesn't come to that point, but let's go. I mean, we're going to be skimming the top of that mountain. I mean, just barely. Alright, and we're getting really, really low. Once we're below 10,000, I would love to do some more science. And, ooh, my lord, that's like right at our level. So if we were any bit further north, we would probably be hitting the mountainside. That is crazy. Let's see, get a different camera view on this. There we go. Free camera. So, okay, so we might not have hit it, but it's still incredibly close. And we're still not as low as we are going to get. We still have to drop another 7,000 meters. Oh, wow. This is pretty cool. We are surfing Minmus. You know, we have enough delta V, we could probably actually land. So I'm going to do my science right now. Observe mystery goo. 24 science, keep data. Goo feels right at home here. Log temperature. Okay, in space, well, near Minmus. Log pressure data. Keep data. And we have one more goo container to do science on while we are on the surface of Minmus. I think that's the only scientific equipment we have not used yet. Log temperature. Actually, we can... Well, we're going to transmit this data, apparently. It's a good thing that we have solar panels facing the sun, because definitely going to need them. Okay, well, we are going to see if we can land in this lake bed area. So we need to burn retrograde for a little bit. We're going to do this by hand. No maneuver nodes. And there's not going to be an atmosphere here, so we don't have to worry about our solar panels breaking off or getting atmospheric drag from the rest of these components here. And we will have to worry about that later when we go to different planets and different moons. Lathe included. Alright. Let's see, where are we going to land? We're going to land somewhere over there. And that means... I think we can satisfactorily start bringing it down. We don't want to land here because that would be very hard. And the gravity on this moon is so little that we really barely have to burn down at all. We just have to kill our velocity, and then we'll start dropping very slowly. I wonder if we can actually land on the Terrier engine and take off again. Not sure it would be of any benefit to us other than being really cool. Okay, it looks like we're probably... Yeah, I'm going to have to wait until we get over the flat part, because right now if we keep burning laterally, we're going to land on the very steep hillside over there. Alright. Let's time warp a little bit. And as you can see, our orbital velocity is not increasing much. That's because the gravity, as I've said many times, is very low on this particular moon of Kerbal. Alright. We are now above the flat part, so we can start really killing our velocity. Once we kill our orbital velocity, our lateral velocity rather, I'm not really worried about our horizontal velocity, as I know we're going to be just fine when it comes to that. In fact, we might want to drop this stage pretty soon. And sea level is at 0 here. At least it should be very close, so we still have 4,000 meters to kill all of this speed. I'm trying to get the prograde marker right at the tippy top, so actually if I burn like this, that should actually get it closer to the top. There we go, just about there. Perfect. Now we're falling almost straight down. 3,000 meters to go. I'm actually going to ditch this engine pretty soon, because I want to see if the ant engine is enough to land. Alright, move that towards the north marker and stop. Perfect. We've just about zeroed out almost all of our velocity. If we burn any further, we're probably going to end up going up. So I'm going to wait a little bit. Well, I guess we can't warp any faster because we are so close to the surface. And it takes almost no energy at all to do a suicide burn at this velocity. So what I'm going to do is say goodbye to this stage. Goodbye, stage. And let's get our gear down. Okay. Goodbye, stage. It was nice knowing you. We really don't need you, and we need our landing gear more than we need the fuel right now. Surprised it's not letting us do a physical time warp. Oh well. I think we're going to cut until we're just a little bit closer to the surface, and then we're going to make a proper landing. Alright, well, we're coming down pretty quick. I'm at full throttle. You can see, there we go, we're about 400 meters away. We're killing our velocity as much as possible. Looks as though the fuel tank is just fine. The engine has seen better days, though. And even with the very low gravity, this ant engine is having a bit of a hard time keeping us from falling. Because we do have a fairly heavy lander. We can turn on our lights. Haha, there we go. And throttle up. We are almost landed. I use the lights to judge where the surface is. Alright, and we are back, and thanks to sticky keys, my game crashed yet again. Thanks, Windows. Alright, well, anyhow, I actually did complete this. I had to reload my save, so we're going to do the landing again anyways, just for you guys. Stupid Windows sticky keys. I got all my science done, and it's kind of annoying that I didn't get to show you that, but anyhow, we're going to do it again, and yeah, we're going to kind of go over what I went over before the game crashed. Anyhow, uh-oh, might want to increase my throttle. This ant engine does not have as much power as I expected it to, and we are going nice and slow. Oop, don't want to go. Looks like I'm overshotted a bit. There we go. We're gently falling back to the surface. This is perfect, perfect, perfect. And there we go. Little bit of a bounce there. Turn on our SAS so we can land properly. Ooh, and there we go. So once this gets... There we go. Now that we're even, we are going to do our science. We're going to log pressure data. Right now we are atmospheric pressure scans from Minmus's Great Flats is where we are. And we're not going to get any science because my game crashed, but we're going to keep the data anyways. By the off chance that we somehow manage to land a Kerbal next to here, we can actually gather this data and bring it back to Kerbal with us. So that's what we're going to do. And unfortunately, we did this already. And we did get a bunch of science from it. Unfortunately, we cannot do the goo containers because we did those in space above Kerbal, so that we're not going to be able to do regardless. So let's log all this information. It's a lot of valuable information if we can bring it back to Kerbal with us. And speaking of bringing it back to Kerbal, this is actually a pretty decent place to set up a proper base because we are in the Great Flats, very easy to land in, but we are also within EVA distance of another biome. And this is a fairly easy place to land in, so this is probably what we're going to be doing when we bring Kerbals here. And as you will see when we go back to the Space Command Center, things have changed a little bit. But we will go over how we're going to be building a base here. And this will hopefully serve as perhaps a launching point for further missions out in the stars. Or rather in the planets, the outer planets and inner planets. And as you can see, we have lights on this probe. Didn't actually need to use them because we landed on the bright side. Speaking of which, hello sun. And Kerbal is nowhere to be seen because it's actually underneath us or on the other side of the Minmus. So there is that. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention that yes, there is an SAS module on top of this probe because I figured it would help with controlling the rocket, and it helped incredibly. If we didn't have this little teeny SAS unit, it would have been nearly impossible to control. So hooray for that. All right, well, let's go back to the Space Center, and I'll show you the two things that we got, in addition to the fact that we spent a lot of our money. We spent a lot of our money. We completely upgraded the entire Kerbal Space Command, so that is no longer an issue. And what we spent our money on is we spent our money on the command modules, or not our money, we spent our science on the command modules. I think we had 364 science, so we spent some of it on the command modules here, which is going to help get us to Minmus and beyond. We have the service bay for the larger rockets. We have the lander can, the command pod, and the cupola module. And we also got the advanced fuel systems, the jumbo fuel tank, and several different size RCS containers. The one that we're going to be working towards is this one. This one is going to help us with our probes, so we can probe the inner and outer planets. And we're going to get science to do this by landing Kerbals on Minmus, gathering some of the data, and heading back. And then we should be able to get the precision propulsion for our probes, as well as that. Eventually RCS is going to be a thing that we're going to be focusing on, but not quite yet. Specialized control, advanced landing. This is another one that we're going to want when we actually start landing on other planets, because the landing struts are going to be a necessity for these larger command pods. They're not necessarily a necessity for the ones that we are using right now, but they will be when we use larger landers. Also, bigger heat shields means we can land the command modules much, much faster without them burning up. Also, we have the Probodobodyne probes, which we're going to be getting, but not quite yet. And we also have the ability to unlock these, which are very interesting. We have the seismic accelerometer and the best communitron in the game. When we transmitted our data from Minmus, we did lose about 50% of it, which is better than the other antenna that loses even more, but this one loses very, very little. Also, it uses, I believe, less electricity, if I'm not mistaken. Not that that's really an issue. And then we also get more science, and this one's pretty cool because we have the Gigantor XL solar arrays, which means we'll pretty much never run out of electricity when we're in the inner solar system. When we're in the outer solar system, they don't work quite as well, which is why we would use something like a fuel cell, which converts liquid fuel and oxidizer into electrical charge. So that's something that we could use in the future as well. Also, now that we unlocked these things, these two things, we can research nuclear propulsion, which will definitely help get us to the inner and outer planets with both the Kerbalnauts and with probes. Also, large volume rockets, going to be useful eventually. And that's about it. We also have some radial attachment points, which are Clampotron docking ports. And we're going to use that to build a small space station, probably a refueling space station, in orbit above Kerbal. So we're going to be doing that eventually, but we don't need to do it quite yet. So that is going to be that, and there are a couple of other things up here that they're going to require quite a bit of science that we will want. Ion propulsion is fantastic for our probes that we're going to be using, and the surface scanning modules we're going to want as well, so we can scan the surface of different planets and whatnot. And we got some different things over here as well. Okay, well, that's enough about that. So, next episode, we are going to Minmus properly with our Kerbins, and I'm turning off sticky keys. All right, well, thank you folks for watching, and I will see you folks next time.